into a tree or that kind of
They probably tell what son did that they were here.
How you feel? How you feel?
I said that.
My son, he worked for Michael.
Your wedding is going to be quite different. Instead of getting married out there in a very nice, beautiful area that she wants to get married by.
But when he said we were not to took for granted that it was you and Brad was only 2 years.
Well, there's a few more than that, so we all got, me and Brad got land and stuff.
We getting old.
We're branching out. Yeah.
He had no
What he did, he's done so long.
I got some place that can't play the horse out.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dan Brew. I want to thank you for coming out tonight for this FLOST Town Hall. We are live on YouTube, so everyone knows. I'd like to thank Commissioner Ellington for showing up. I got Brent King from the Board of Education is here. And we have our tax commissioner, Andy Chastain, here. Those are elected officials I see that listening back. So I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate your interest in property taxes in Upson County. I know there's been a lot of interest lately when we get to the FLOST. So tonight I'd like to talk about where we are and how we got here and where we need to go. Okay, so we're going to talk about the floating local option sales tax. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is House Bill 581. That is what authorizes the floating local option sales tax. And House Bill 92, which kind of tweaked it just a little bit. And then we're going to talk about what a penny will bring into Upson County. And then what most people are interested in is how do we distribute that penny. All right. So, first thing, House Bill 581. When you talk to our elected representatives, and I should mention that Representative Dickey had planned to be here tonight. He had a family issue. He didn't say I could talk about it, so I won't talk about it. But if you would, everyone, just please keep the Dickey family in your prayers tonight. But our representatives in the Georgia General Assembly, they looked at what happened to taxes after, during and after COVID, right? And some people couldn't afford their taxes. People who had been in their homes forever, homes may be paid off, but they can't afford their taxes. And people were losing their homes. And right when I took office, I got on the FLOST. Now I started dealing with FLOST. What should we do, right? And I talked to all the members of the Board of Commissioners, and we were all united. We unanimously said, we're opting in, we're not opting out, right? And this is really the reason for House Bill 581. If you read about this local city resident in Thomaston, Georgia, lives on $700 a month. She has a home. Her taxes are $400 a month. Barely has enough to eat on, right? These are the people that House Bill 581 was really about. How do we help people stay in their homes? They've lived there their whole lives. The housing market went through the roof. Values went through the roof. And it's no fault of the person who happens to live in that house, right? So that's what it's about, is keeping people in their homes. And they passed House Bill 581. The name of the bill is Save Our Homes Act. Save Our Homes, right? And it's the first statewide homestead adjustment in almost 100 years, right? When we first started having property taxes in the state of Georgia, the average house was valued at $5,000, right? The homestead exemption was $2,000, right? So That's 40% of 5,000. How much money? How much of the value of your house do you get taxed on? 40%. So when we started taxing properties in the state of Georgia back in the 1930s, we said, hey, the average house is $5,000. We're going to tax it at 40%. And then that's $2,000 we're going to tax. We're going to give homesteaders, people who live here, who are going to stay here, we're going to give them a $2,000 tax exemption. So when we started off, we weren't even taxing people who had their home and were staying in their homes. We're taxing businesses, we're taxing manufacturing, we're taxing rental properties, those type of things, not homeowners. Right? That changed over the years, right? We talk about lobbyists, right? We have tax breaks for every industry that exists. There's tax breaks. There's people under the Gold Dome. There's people in D.C. lobbying as we speak, trying to work deals to get breaks for different industries and such, right? No one was up there saying, hey, how about the homeowner, right? But it really came to light after the pandemic and what happened to people and their home values, right? So they passed House Bill 581. It gave us a floating homestead exemption. So what that did, if you're a homesteader, it froze your home value at the 2024 level. If you've got your tax assessment for this year, you'll see it has, in your homesteader, it'll have, your assessment is the same as 2024 for your county M&O tax. All right? It might have went up fair market value for other taxes, such as the Board of Education and joint projects and unincorporated. But the county tax is frozen. 581 also gave us the option for a floating local option sales tax, right? That sales tax can only be used to reduce property taxes, right? It's not like the FLOST that we use to pay for other bills so we don't add it to the property tax. It's not like the T-FLOST that we use to pave roads so we don't have to add to your taxes to pave roads. It's just coming off. It only comes off the taxes. You cannot create a windfall, which is a very important point when we get talking about what the percentage should be for a split between the city and the county, right? And what this does, it offsets the revenue lost from homestead exemption. So each municipality, each county have less property they could tax because your value didn't go up this past year, right? Now, luckily, there's also natural growth, more homes being built, more businesses coming in, and there's inflation, right? So that covers some of it, but not all of it, right? And it also helps those non-homestead property owners, right? So if you own an investment property, you own a home you rent out to someone else, you don't get the benefit of 581 via the homestead. But what you'll see is you get a significant benefit if we do floating local option sales tax. If you live in the city, you get a really significant benefit if that property is in the city. Right? Last year, they added House Bill 92. They called that the cleanup bill. It was just some things they thought about. They couldn't get in. You know, they have a deadline in the session. But it requires any tax levying authority who did opt out to put it on the tax bill that this authority opted out of House Bill 581. It also says those authorities, those taxing authorities, have to have public hearings every year starting in 2027, whether they're raising taxes or not because of House Bill 581. It provides an option for those people who did opt out, those municipalities, counties, boards of education that did opt out. It provides a provision for them to say, hey, you know what, maybe that wasn't such a great idea. We're going to opt in. And then two key points, and Andy could probably talk about one of them because it's happening today. Surviving spouses retain the homestead exemption. The longer you live in your house, the greater the savings are going to be over time, right? So what they didn't want is the house is in the husband's name and he passes away, or the spouse passes away, the wife passes away, and then the other person wasn't a taxpayer, so now they start over. So they put a provision in the bill that a surviving spouse maintains the homestead that has already been on that property for however many years it's been on that property, right? And the last thing they did was they put an exemption for only 5 acres around your property. Like your homestead can only be 5 acres. If you have more acreage than that, you have an option of doing CUVA, right? Standard CUVA is 10 plus acres. There are exceptions to that. Like if you're a beekeeper, you can do it on like 2 acres. You have to show on a Schedule F that you are a certified farm and that you are farming, but you can do put less land than 10 acres in a CUVA. But most of the large tracts of land are in CUVA, and so they are getting some tax breaks there. That's what 581 was all about. And here's the kicker, right? We can only use it exclusively for tax relief. Can only use it for tax relief. We can't say, wow, man, we're bringing in $5.2 million. What can we do with that? We can't. What can we do with it? We can reduce our tax levy. That's what we can do. Next thing is real important. What is that penny worth? All right? We have a lot of pennies, right? We're going to talk about when you buy something at Walmart. When you go to Walmart and you buy a jug of milk, you get taxed one way. If you buy a pair of Wrangler jeans, you get taxed a different way, right? And that's because the state tax right now is 4%. State tax is 4%. So when you add the 4 local option sales taxes that we have in Upson County, that means you're generally paying 8% sales tax on everything you buy, except food bought for preparation. That means your groceries. So if you go buy milk, you'll see on your Walmart receipt, they'll have 4% sales tax for whatever you paid on the milk. If you had a pair of regular jeans, there'll be a separate line that'll say 8% sales tax, and that's what you paid on the jeans. So that's how the state tax works. The 4 local option sales taxes that we have in Upson County are: 1, the LOST, local option sales tax, plain LOST. It's negotiated every 10 years after the census, right? So we do a split with Thomaston and Yatesville, right, for that. And so that's money that comes in, and it doesn't reduce your tax. That's a revenue, right, that makes us not have to have as much tax, right? And there's different criteria that we use when we're negotiating that. It has things that we want to look at. So it's kind of spelled out. The next one we often hear people talk about is FLOST. FLOST, Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. We have one in Upson County, right? Primarily, what's coming out of that $5 million is $1.5 million a year to pay basically the mortgage. You have the Justice Center. It's a Tier 1 FLOST. We did it in order to finance the Justice Center. So 1.5 million comes out every year. The other special purposes have to be laid out, right? And we have to agree on what are we going to use this money for before it ever goes to the ballot, right? And so there's things on there like we buy patrol vehicles. We have a rotation. Patrol vehicle only lasts so long, but it's not coming out of your property tax to keep the deputy in a serviceable vehicle, right? So those are things we do with SPLOST. The next one is T-SPLOST. That's your transportation special purpose local option sales tax. That is for roads, road repair, road maintenance. So not a single penny of property tax in Upson County is going to pave your roads. When you see these roads paved, right, and I forget how many miles of road they paved last year. We're about to start another project looking at about 50 miles of road, right? And who knew how much asphalt cost? It's expensive, right? There's only a certain number of companies that do it. So, but That is that penny sales tax. That's paying for the roads in the county. The city gets a portion as well. Right? And then there's the FLOST, right? FLOST, education, special purpose, property sales tax. It has to do with capital investments in the education center. It has to do with building a new school, building a new gymnasium, building something infrastructure-wise. It has nothing to do with curriculum or those type of things. If I'm misspeaking, you can word education's here. So that's what that's for. And then we have this, what we're talking about tonight, floating local option sales tax. All right. So it's projected to produce more than $5 million a year. All right. It's every sales transaction in the county, all right, that is not a government entity. It's not a gate card for a farmer. If it's not tax exempt and it's not food, it's paying the FLOST, right? So projected to bring in over $5 million in extra sales tax revenue each year.
How much of that's coming out of the other counties?
So I had that statistic at one time.
Anywhere from 12 to 15%. That's what I'm hearing.
I wouldn't want to be quoted on what it is. It's not an insignificant amount. And so you have outside the counties, right? So all the rural areas come to Thomaston. It's a socioeconomic center, right? We have the Walmart, we have the Home Depot, we have the Tractor Supply, we have the Longhorns, right? Every Sunday I see one of my associates who works for me in our Walmart. She lives in Milner, Georgia. She can go to Griffin Walmart or she can come to our Walmart. Every Sunday I see her in there, right? So there's people from outside the county coming. They're contributing to that sales tax. They'll be contributing to your property tax. The other thing you don't see on here is online sales, right? I had 2 Amazon packages when I got home today, right? I live in the county. Amazon charged 9%, well, they charge 8% sales tax right now, right? So all online sales that deliver in the state of Georgia, if that company has a presence in the state of Georgia, they collect sales tax. That sales tax makes it back to Upson County, right? So that's another big part.
I just want to interject this.
Yeah.
And I've heard this statement made a lot, you know, and when I thought about it, everybody goes, well, why do we want to pay an extra penny? Why would we want to put an extra penny sales tax on ourselves? Well, hey, you know, we don't know that one of those counties outside that loop, or Griffin, Macon, Columbus, Atlanta's not going to adopt these same things. So it's not right to say, well, I don't want to have to pay another penny when you get, look, and we got to all admit, we leave Thomaston and we go out to eat, and if there's things we have to purchase, are we willing to go to those communities and spend that extra penny? Have we thought about that?
Yeah, good point. That's not something I think about most of the time when I'm out shopping. Is what's the sales tax on this going to be, right? So that's where we're at there. Let's look at what these taxes are doing for Upson County right now. So the loss is bringing in $1.5 million a year right now. The FLOST, again, $5.1 million a year. The FLOST has a different admin fee. The Department of Revenue charges us for collecting these pennies. So we get 4.8, and then the Board of Education last year got $5.2 million. So we know by these numbers that it's going to be over $5 million when we add the penny. All right, that's not even taking into account inflation, right? If inflation is 3%, what's 3% of $5 million? That's math. $150,000, right? So that's $5 million going towards property tax in Upson County. The big question becomes, who gets that money? who's getting money off of their property taxes, right? I see a lot of Facebook posts about the city getting money, about the county getting money. It's not either one of us getting money, right? It's not about the city, it's not about the county. It's about the taxpayer. How much money is coming off of your tax bill? That is all this is about, right? It's about tax relief, right? So we started in February. We started in February looking at this, right? And the county did. And we looked at what is fair? What would be fair, right? And so we came up with 3 options, right? 3 repeatable formulas that generally anyone could understand how we got to this number, right? So the first option was that only the county received the funds. What would that have done, right? What that would have done is everyone in the county pays county M&O tax. So that would have been every property in the county, whether you are within the city limits or outside of the city limits, every property in the county would receive over 5 mills discount off of the taxes, right? So this year, our millage rate is 9.46%, right? So if you took off 5, 5.1, or 5.2 from that, talking about 4% millage rate, right? You're talking about a 60-something% savings for everybody in the county on their county tax. That's one way to be fair. Everybody gets the same benefit. That's one way to be fair. The second way we look at, let's talk about that fairness, right? Save 63% on taxes on the county side. Overall, the city side, they would receive a 36% savings, right? Because they're still paying the city tax. So this number in the middle, some call it tax equity. I call it tax differential. But what this shows you is if we had executed, if we came up with that proposal, right, city taxpayers would still pay 87% more tax than a county taxpayer. On the it can be the exact same value property. They would be paying 87% more. So that's why we have to keep the city in mind, right? The second option we came up with was prorated to how much revenue we bring in from taxes. How much do we bring in from county taxes? How much do we bring in from city taxes? Right? And that breaks out to about 88% of the taxes are in the county and 12% in the city. That's close, Andy? So if you split it off that way and give the city 12% of the money and the county 88% of the money, you see it's a more equitable distribution. They're receiving a 47% savings. They're receiving the county's receiving a 47% savings. The taxpayer is receiving a 47% savings. The difference is the city taxpayer is still paying 41% more taxes on the same value property as a county taxpayer. So how do we fix that? The magic number is 26%. The magic number for fairness is 26%. At 26%, a county homeowner is going to save about 40% off of their taxes. A city homeowner is going to save 57% off of their taxes. But remember, that's a much larger, that's not much larger, but it's a bigger tax bill. In the end, they're paying the same tax. If I have a $200,000 property in the city, and I have a $200,000 property in the county, they pay the exact same thing. That's fair, right? So we're going to show you that We went with option 3. We think option 3 is what's fair for taxpayers. You do that by looking at the tax digest. The tax digest is what is the value of all the properties that a levying authority can tax. So if you look at Upson County, you see it's $1.025 billion worth of property that we can apply property tax to. You see I have 2 shades of green in Upson County, right? Because some people live outside of the city limits, some people live inside the city limits. They're still paying Upson County M&O tax. And we come over to the city. The city property values, when added up, are $357 million. $357 million. Right? Now we combine those, we say, of everything that everybody can tax, it comes out to $1.38 million. $1.38 billion. Right? What is the share of the city's value of the combined value? It comes out to 25.86%. The share of the county's value compared to the combined value, 74.1%. That's how we get to 26%. And what is important about 26%? This is what's important about 26%. Their digest, $357 million, and their millage rate that they're levying this year, 3.608 is the millage rate, will generate $1,290,000 for the city. $1,290,000 for the city. Let's take the $5 million worth of pennies. And we know it's going to be a little bit more than that, right? But we stay with 5 million because it's an easy round number. Let's multiply that by the 26% that they would get. That generates for the city $1.3 million. It completely eliminates the city M&O tax. There is no city M&O tax on a homesteader. There's no city M&O tax on a business. There's no city M&O tax on rental properties. There's no tax. Sounds like a pretty good deal, right? So let's look at it. I know Andy's got some probably examples. I used a $200,000 home, $200,000 property in the county down here and in the city up here, right? I said, and I used some math here. I increased the value of the home over a couple of years, so looking at 2027 is when this takes effect. 2027 is the first time we'll see the benefit of this penny. Increase in home value 5% year over year, right? Inflation steady at 3%. Those are the givens, right? What that does is your $200,000 home in 2024 is going to be worth roughly $231,000 in 2027. It's going to continue to gain value. If you're a homesteader, you're going to get a floating homestead because of House Bill 581. Right? And that's going to take it to what would be the inflation rate over those 3 years. Right? So if the inflation rate was 3%, you take the remainder out, and so you take $18,000 off of the fair market value of the house to get a $212,000 value on the house. Right? Again, it's only taxed at 40%. I should say only because that sucks. But that's what it is. It's 40%. Right? That gives you about $85,000 that you're being taxed on a $231,000 home, right? If you're in the county, I screwed that up right there, that's not right. You won't get that. You'll get a $10,000 homestead exemption, or it could be more if you're 62 or 65, there's different values it could be. At the end of the day, what will happen is the city tax holder, remember I told you they're going to get a bigger break, they'll get $533 break on their taxes. They would pay $398 on the county M&O tax, but they wouldn't pay anything on the city tax. So there would be no city tax. What does the county person pay? While the savings isn't the same, the payment is, right? So that's the equity. That's what makes it equitable, right? If you have a same value property in the same county, you're paying the same tax, right? To do that, we have to get an agreement with the city, right? And if we can get an agreement with the city, then it'll be on the ballot on November 4th. Right? So that's how it works. I know that's a lot. I'm willing to take any questions on anything I covered. A lot.
What's the M&O?
M&O is maintenance and operations. So that's the general fund. That's the primary fund for the municipality or the county.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mayor came out today on the radio about IDA, a couple of other joint projects
Sure.
that the county has pulled out of.
That's not exactly true, but okay.
So address that.
Okay. So first one is the IDA, right? The IDA is written into the joint projects agreement, but there's no percentage split on the IDA. What happens with the IDA is the IDA will come to us, the county and the city, and say, hey, we need some money, right? This is what we need. Can you help us with that? All right? In the past, before I was elected, there had been a stoppage of supporting the IDA. And there was reasons for that. I wasn't part of that. There were some reasons for it. So both myself as chairman and Ben Watson, the vice chair, we have both said publicly that we are willing to look at funding the IDA. Slade Gulledge is the director of the IDA. He's put together some numbers along with the chairman, Chase Fallon, and they're going to come to the board and say, this is what we could use some help with. Right? And we have publicly, multiple times, said that we're willing to look at that. Right? They haven't presented it yet. So when they present it, then we'll make a decision as to what we can do. The other thing was the Gilmore, right? So the Gilmore was a joint decision of the city and the county to stop funding. Right? There was some discrepancies in funds, as I understand. Again, before I was elected, so I'm kind of catch up. All right? At some point, maybe the city gave them a place or something. I don't know what the city is actually doing. But as far as from joint projects, both parties agreed to halt based on investigations and things that were going on. Right? That hasn't changed as far as I know. So that's kind of not relevant, but it's a deflection. And we could play deflection games all day, right? Because who pays for the ambulance service? Right? If you were to take a heat map and say, where does the ambulances in Upson County go? There'll be one big red spot. Right? That's county funded. So they can say things like that. The county could say things like that. We could, there's different things that affect different organizations. Right? It's really not here or there. We're talking about the M&O. We're not talking about joint projects. We're talking about the general funds of both organizations. And in the proposal that we put forward, it would wipe out the taxes for the general fund in the city. And it would allow property owners, not homeowners, property owners, businesses, rental properties, homes, to be on a level playing field. Everyone with the same value property is paying the same taxes, whether you're inside the city or you're outside the city. That is about as fair as you can get. And it has nothing to do with how much money the city gets or how much money the county gets, because we get no money. The money comes right off the top to roll back the taxes, right? If they got the additional $700,000 that they're asking for, right now, there is no legal way to even use that to provide tax relief. The Department of Revenue uses a form called PT 32.1 to roll back property taxes on M&O property only. There is no mechanism in place to roll back for some other tax. And think how complicated that might be if there's 159 counties in Georgia, and I don't even know how many cities, and they all might have some kind of special tax district, for them to try to figure that out, right? And so, we don't know why they asked for 40%. We've never received a formula that we can calculate, oh, that makes sense, right? It's just a number, right? And, you know, I'm not mad if they want more money. Everybody would want more money. But I'm not looking at it to see how much money the city can get or how much money the county can get. I'm looking at how can we be fair to the taxpayers, because this is only about the taxpayers. Yeah, Brent?
Have y'all reached out to any counties and cities that are equivalent to ours and asked them what they're doing?
Yeah, so a good example is Thomas County, Georgia. Big town, Thomasville, really nice town. They get 0%. 0%. McDuffie County, town of Thompson, I think they got like 6% or something, right? So, again, there's two ways to be fair. You can either give everyone the same savings, or you can give everyone the same price. That's the only two ways to be fair. So to be fair, you need to be at 0%, or you need to be at 26%. Any other number is not fair to the taxpayer. And that's really all we care about. Yes, sir.
Explain to me, if I'm paying an extra penny for the money that I spend in Thomas,
Yes, sir.
say it's gonna be $700.
What's $700?
I'm spending extra on that one penny.
So how much money would you have to spend $700 on an extra penny? You'd have to spend $70,000 in order to spend the extra $700. $70,000 in town. That's not your mortgage or rent. That's not your insurance. That's not your car payment. That's not your gas. That's not your utilities. That's not your cell phone. Groceries, right? It's essentials, or if you want to do something extra, if you want to go to the Longhorn, or you want to go get some building supplies, you have to spend $70,000. So the average home for a homesteader in Upson County last year was $180,000, right? It went up a little bit this year. I have an example of one that was 184 last year, it's 188 this year. Right?
You way off.
Huh?
They took us from 93 to 172,000.
That is true in some cases. I'm talking about an average, right? Mine went up more than I did, right? But the average homestead, right, was around $180,000 last year, right? So most properties saw 5% increase. Some saw 10%. It depends. Some properties in Upson County went up by 6 figures, right? That probably has nothing to do with the value of the property. The property was worth that before. It's just that we've gone back and had the Board of Assessors really look hard at stuff and make sure we're being fair to everyone. right? But at $180,000, at $180,000, right? That home owner would save roughly $500 in taxes if it's in the city.
I can't see that. You got to explain that to me a little bit better.
Okay,
Let me,
Because I'm paying an extra penny.
a penny.
That's right, a penny. Everything I buy in Thomaston, I'm paying an extra penny for.
Mhm.
It seems to me like that penny, I'm not getting no deduction on the property tax, because all you doing is taking that money that I'm giving you and you just putting it somewhere else.
how much would you spend on average, would you say, a month like that? Were you saying you spend $700?
All right, here's an example.
Yes.
Okay, if you spend $700, it's gonna cost you $7 more a month. And that paper I got right there, it shows you saving way more than that over a year's time. 7 times 12 is what, $84?
$3,400.
$84 a year.
1% on that is $84.
Right.
So you spend that much,
Yeah,
$8,400 a year, you're only spending $84 in taxes.
You
And
get
you're
$5
getting-
million.
And, no,
You're getting $5 million out of that one penny.
we're getting it. We are.
That's, okay. I'm not getting it. Y'all get it.
We are. You pay county taxes, you're gonna get it.
But let me say, you taking that money and just putting it toward property tax. And
Right.
I just see it as a transfer of taxes.
But it's only $84.
Yeah, I don't see a savings.
It's $84
It's $84.
that you're having to pay, but you're gonna get, depending on your
You live in the
property.
city or the county?
Okay, here's an
You're
example.
gonna get more savings than I am. if you live
Here's
in
an
the city.
example. This house was valued at $184,000 last year. This year it's valued at $188,000, right? If it was a homestead, the assessment, 40% of the frozen amount is $73,000, right? With an exemption of $10,000 is $63,000, right? That's only on the county tax, right? If you got a Board of Education tax or city taxes, it's $75,000. You don't get the $10,000, right? You're paying school tax, county tax, city tax, joint projects. Your tax bill for this house in the city is $1,053 this year. If the FLOST was applied, you'd roll off the county M&O, you would eliminate the city. Your tax is $590 this year. You saved $462. You would have to spend $46,200 in order to get that penny to equal 462. And the average household income in Upson County is $40,000 a year. Not individual income, household income, right? So those people that it's going to affect the most are going to benefit. If you spent an extra $1,000, if you spent $1,000 a month, period, right? Eating out, buying groceries, not on your car, not on your rent, not on your cell phone, not on your utilities, not on your gas, groceries and necessities. If you spent $1,000 a month, you would have paid $10 for that penny.
Groceries aren't taxed, are
They are taxed. Right now they're taxed at 4%. It'll go to 5% with the FLOST. So just to be clear. So, but that would mean you would have to spend $42,000 in town, in the county, in order to not save money on your property taxes, right? And that's almost impossible to do, not save money, because you have so many people spending money here that aren't from here, right? When you go to Chick-fil-A, look at the car in front of you. What's the license plate? Right? Some of them say "In God We Trust." Some of them say Spalding County. Some of them say Thomas County. Some of them are from Florida, right? We have US 19 running straight down the middle of our county. We have people traveling through here every day that are not from those surrounding counties, that are spending money, that are stopping at the gas station, that are stopping at Chick-fil-A, they're stopping at McDonald's, right? And every one of those people are paying your property tax with FLOST.
We're kind of looking at a 50% cut in property taxes. If we pass this, is that where you're kind of at with it?
If you're in the city, it's
On the M&O. On the M&O.
on the, but
A total, off your total property taxes, what percentage are you kind of looking at with it?
well, that depends. I mean, because we're not calculating. There's no savings from school board to school board, right? So you're going to pay whatever the school board tax is, right? And that's your largest portion in this scenario. It may not be, well, that's always going to be your largest portion because they're about 4 mills above the county right now.
Yeah,
So-
there's so many different.
Yeah, there's so
scenarios.
many things. You can only really look at city M&O and county M&O to understand where the savings come from.
Yeah, a house with a bigger value is gonna save more money.
Has the
Because you're-
city been presented this?
Yes, ma'am. I presented this. This is the 5th time I presented this. And the other 4 times I presented it, I walked through all 3 scenarios, right? And so, again, equal savings at 0, equal payment at 26, right? Those are really the 2 options. Any other option, right? If you go down on the city, right, they're going to be paying more tax for the same property that someone in the county. If you go up on the city, right, if they could find a way legally to work around the law to keep that money and apply it to joint projects or something, then individuals in the county will be paying a higher tax for the same property as someone in the city. Those are the only 2 numbers that play out for FLOST, 0 or 26.
I know there was a discrepancy about whether or not it could only go to M&O. I know that's been established. I know the county has one perspective and the city had another
Yeah,
perspective.
so I will tell you that, I got the guy who wrote the law on speed dial. There's only one place you can roll off taxes. The Department of Revenue only has one way you can roll off taxes. You can only roll them off on the form PT 32.1 that Andy does off of the M&O tax, right? And I'm just being real, right? When you look at 159 counties and try to come up with some other tax that they may have in that county and come up with some other solution, that's really an administrative nightmare for the Department of Revenue, right? Some counties have a fire tax. Some counties have a joint project. Some counties have some other special tax, right? They only roll back the M&O. And why is that? You can have all these taxes, right? Joint projects we have, unincorporated tax we have, right? We are not required by law to advertise a millage rate increase on those taxes. If the city rolled back your joint projects, they could turn around in the same breath and raise your joint projects by that the same amount. And you've got nothing, and they've got more money. That's why the law is not written that way, right? The law is specific to the M&O. You can roll it back. If you raise it after you roll it back, on the M&O only, you have to advertise. You have to have 3 public hearings, so everyone knows what you did.
Could the same thing be done with the millage rate though to offset that anyway? Number 1, number 2,
So, but the law requires that. That's what I'm saying. The law requires it on the M&O. If you took $5 million off of everybody's county tax, then James had this bright idea, hey, let's raise taxes by $5 million. Well, y'all probably wouldn't be sitting down. There would probably be pitchforks and lanterns. That's why the law is written that way. That is a safeguard that the law put in, that we have to notify you if we're raising taxes even by 1/10 of a mil. right? And you get to know, there's public notice, you get to have comment. You know, in some cases, you might be able to sway stuff, you know, oh, we're raising it for this, well, nobody in the county wants that. I don't know. So that's the safeguard of the law.
Last year, is that correct?
Say again?
It went up, the M&O is what went up 50% last year.
Yeah, 50% over the rollback rate, that's kind of misleading. It didn't go, the taxes didn't go up 50%. The amount of millage increase went up 50% over the rollback rate, which is what keeps taxes level at what you collected the year before. So it wasn't really 50% of the previous year's tax. Just in the-
This looks like a fair-ish deal. It does. But what I think a lot of people are worried about is last year they went up, year before they went up. So even if we get relief from adding a penny, at what rate is our budget going up to where, okay, once you give us relief, what's the vision, I guess, is what I'm looking for. I'm hoping somebody's got a hold of the reins on it and are doing it in a way that, what can we expect to increase?
Look at that second page. You know, I printed this up this morning for that very reason.
So
this is about trust.
Yeah, I
This
think
is
what
about
Andy's
trust.
showing you is what is the percentage of taxes from the county and the city over a period of time, right?
Yeah, you know, and this whole thing is between the city and the county is about trusting each other to do the right thing for the taxpayers, okay? So if you go back to 2017, these are the total tax levies for each, okay? And you can see how they've gone up over the years, mostly due to inflation. You got salaries and add in whatever else I might miss, healthcare
Insurance.
costs, workers' comp, things like that, which increases the budget needs. But the thing I'm getting at with this is how uniform it is percentage-wise, okay? It's not like any one government entity jumped out there and said, hey, we're gonna jump these taxes up 20% this year. You know, so it's like you got, as much as the county and the city, local governments take hits, you know, from the taxpayers, you got people in place that are really doing the right thing. They're doing the job the right way. They're not, you know, they're doing it the best way they can. And when you see the uniformity that you see in these figures, that lets you know that, hey, are we there doing it, you know,
But when we
the way it's
see
supposed to.
from 23 to 24, that's what gets scary. Like when we get, if it goes from 25 to 26, the same way it went from 23, I know we had a pandemic or whatever, but it just makes us worry a little bit, a
So-
little bit concerned.
You know, what's really important, what I think is really important is transparency, right? And so we're on YouTube Live right now. Every meeting that we do with the Board of Commissioners, whether it's a public called meeting or it's a work session where we're talking about everything, is available on YouTube. We stream it on YouTube, so you know what we're talking about. We're not trying to hide anything, right? So you can hear us talking about, man, the premiums for health insurance with the company that we had went up 24%, right? How can we deal with that? That is a lot. What we had to opt to do is we went with another company, but it still went up 14%, right? We just can't pull people's health insurance out from under them, right? So those are things that are going to happen, right? And we know we're going to have inflation year over year. So no politician in their right mind could stand up in front of you and say, we're never raising taxes, right? Because there's inflation. There's going to be inflationary growth, right? How can we have lower taxes in Upson County? That's what really people want to know. How can I get my taxes lower? There's only a couple ways to get your taxes lower. The first one is growth, right? And so depending on what Facebook page you're on, we want growth or we don't want growth, right? The only way to have more revenue is to have more homes or more businesses, right? Or more manufacturing, right? That will bring in more revenue. If there's a greater number or there's large manufacturing that's being taxed for equipment and real estate, it could reduce everyone's property tax in the county. The other way is kind of what FLOST is. FLOST is basically a fair tax. We're spreading the tax out amongst the consumers, right? It becomes a consumption tax, right? Luckily, we have US 19 running through us, and we have rural counties around us that come shop here, so we have consumers spending money paying our property tax, helping us pay our property tax, right? So that 1 cent, right? 1 cent can eliminate the city tax and reduce the county tax by over 40%. If the state had a 2 cent, it would reduce property tax.
Dan, do we know the ratio of people who own property in Upson County versus the total population? Because the people that are going to benefit are the people who own property. The remainder of the population who may be a renter, may be a...
That's one way to look at it, Jerry. Another way to look at it is, who pays for the services? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right now, only you, the property owner, pay for the service, right? Now, you may use an ambulance. Someone who doesn't own a home may use an ambulance. Someone who doesn't own a home may, so it goes both ways, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
One, I don't know the answer to your question.
Just, I'm sitting here on the 1% thing that this gentleman's talking about,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I said, maybe everybody don't own property, how are they going to benefit? And you're talking about they're going to benefit, and I understand by other services that are provided.
They're benefiting by the services that your property taxes would be paying for that are now paid for by a sales
Yeah, but
tax.
this particular thing,
Well, the landlord's gonna pass down, and
Yeah.
because he has. If he has to pay the additional, he don't have to
I
pay.
disagree with you, but I've been in the real estate business.
Yeah, you know the benevolent landlord.
I know lots of landlords, they're not going up as much, you're right in that, they will not go up as much.
But if you have to floss,
This,
their property taxes will be way less than what they are today.
Yeah, well,
And that's helpful.
they're not going to suffer an increase, they're going to pass the increase along, generally, if it's.
Yeah. And without the floss, they'll have the increase.
If it's possible to
The
pass.
floss is designed to keep them from having the increase.
let's take it a step further, what he's talking about. I told somebody this today. What about the renters? Every time taxes go up, the rent goes up, right? And let's be realistic. The landlord, when he saves $300 on a $100,000 home, you think he's gonna go in and lower his rent? He ain't gonna do it, okay? All right. So what does that create? To me, it creates a renter's market later on, because the landlords that do it the right way, when they have an opening, they're gonna offer a house for lower rent because they can afford to. So it's gonna create a market for renters.
Andy and I talked about that this morning, and he makes a very good point.
Yeah.
He makes a very good point.
Yeah, there's all kind of angles we can look at. Yeah, Brent?
I think I understand what Brandon's trying to ask, is he's saying if we do the split like you wanted, and y'all get y'all's millage rate down to 5 point something.
We're not getting it down to 5.
No, what I'm saying is, what's it gonna say? What would the county tax be, millage rate?
It's on that front page right here that I got.
No, that's-
If FLOST was in effect today,
No, I'm talking about if when FLOST takes effect.
Now, when floss takes effect, the county millage rate would drop by 3.7
Okay.
mills, basically.
I think what Brandon is asking is, if we get that 5 or whatever percentage it is to get it down to that number, what happens next year when insurance goes back up?
Right.
You're gonna have to go up on your millage rate, because that $5 million.
Yeah, no one is saying that, no politician in the right mind would ever say that millage rates are going to be frozen at this level. You know, you have to look at it every year. How can we have the revenue that we need to provide the services that we're required to do, right? One is bring in more businesses, right? That growth can cause you not to have to raise taxes, all right? Growth by fair market value can cause you not to have to raise taxes, right? What is a rollback? A rollback is, we're gonna get you to where you were before.
Correct.
So your digest could go up by, you know, $1 million, right? Your property went up, right? I can tell you, hey, we roll back. Depending on your property, how much your property went up, you may have a tax increase. Even though we don't have to advertise a tax increase. It's different for every property in
I
the
think what he's
county.
getting at is, you're right, it saves money now. But in 5 years, what happens when we're back to the
In 5 years, we'll still have the
That's the whole
services.
point with this right here. You know, it's unrealistic to think a government authority ain't gonna go up on their taxes.
Right.
Okay? That's unrealistic. It's gonna happen. But guess what? You're still rolling off $5 million from that sales tax. If you weren't, you're footing the bill yourself. Okay?
But if it didn't go in, if it didn't go in 5 years, you just increase the amount to keep up with inflation.
And you know, there's some other good options with this. You know, let's say it gets on the ballot and it passes, and it's not what the people want, or it didn't work out. Guess what? In 5 years, you can take it off, and we're back to 8 cents, you know? What's wrong with taking a chance and helping the taxpayer, you know, see if it works?
Come on now.
I just hope the alphabet don't run out. We got T, E, F. We got 28 letters in the alphabet. Y'all just keep on.
I think he needs to really look at this.
I looked at it.
What you can save, you know, if you're spending, let's say you spend $1,000 a month, that's $120 a year. If you live in the city and your home's worth $150,000, you're gonna save almost $400 in property tax.
How about the East block?
That's
already there.
I know it. That's what, and
Yeah.
it's coming from the taxpayer.
On your property tax bill, you're gonna save almost $400, but you're only spending $120 in the extra penny. So you're gonna come out on the clear $300.
Now, if y'all go up on the evaluation.
Well, that's back to what he was saying about going up on the values in 2022 and 2023. That was something unprecedented.
Well, you gonna go up, it went up every year, according to this.
Yeah, but what happened in 2022 and 2023 was unprecedented because of the real estate market. You know,
And now-
low interest rates that drove
Homesteaders are frozen.
prices up.
Homesteaders are frozen this year.
Yeah, and that's a good point, you know, that's the whole point of 581. You're starting at a base value of 2024 to be taxed on, not what happened this year. Had HB 581 and FLOST been in place in 2022 and 2023, we'd be great. But because of what happened in 2022 and 2023, they came up with FLOST and HB 581.
So I think we can all agree, we all hate taxes, right? No one wants to pay taxes. All I can tell you
We're just
is,
gonna pay our fair share.
all I can tell you is I ran on a promise to do what is in the best interest of the taxpayers of Upson County. When I say Upson County, that includes Shakespeare, Salem, Thomaston, The Rock. It's all of Upson County, right? I represent all of Upson County, right? And so I made that promise, and I'm standing here before you today to tell you there's only 2 options that are best for the taxpayer. One is 0, and one is 26%. Any other option, there is a win-lose scenario between county and city.
Is the 26% a stalemate for the city?
The city,
What's the numbers?
the city says they want 40%. There's no, they have given no explanation for the 40%, right? Like, I can show you why I would go to 26%.
Yeah.
Right? They have not shown anyone why they will go to 40%.
And I've heard,
And that's
I've heard their reasoning about all of the services the county opted out of, and this money can't be used for those services.
It wouldn't be used for those services anyway. And it's a deflection because you could make the same argument on the other side, right? The other side of the coin, you can make the exact same argument, right? That's just a deflection. All right. The real deal is that there's only two ways to be fair to taxpayers. 0%.
Let me say this, I want to make sure we understand this, and everybody in the county understands this, about being fair, okay? I'm not pro-county, I'm not pro-city. When I sat in that joint projects meeting last week, I heard county math, I heard city math, I heard ACCG math, okay? Andy looks at it as a tax bill. What's it gonna do to the tax bill, okay? So let's talk about being fair. And all my equations right here, this is what it's gonna look on a person that's homestead under age 62 in a house with $150,000, okay, value to it. It could be any scenario, any value, but this is the fairness in the percentage. And this is based on 26% going to the city. A city taxpayer, after this FLOST is rolled off, is gonna save $397 a year on their taxes, okay? A county taxpayer, unincorporated only, if you live outside the city limits, you're only gonna save $181, period. That's it. Now, who's coming out based on 26%? Who's coming out on the same value house? A city taxpayer. The city's saying, okay, we have all these services, we have the stores inside the city limit. I get that, totally I get that, I understand that, which is why you're getting a bigger tax rate, okay? But guess what? It's like going back and forth. County taxpayers go to them stores and they shop, they spend their money there, right? So when you look at this, a city taxpayer saving $400 off their taxes a year versus $181, explain to me what's not fair about that. Now, consider this. Suppose the roles were reversed. Think about that. If you had the city saying only getting $181 tax break and the county was getting $400, reckon what? Would they be happy? I don't know. I don't think so. But right now, like he was saying, and I'm with the DOR all the time, you can't roll this off joint projects. I don't roll sales tax off joint projects now, I never have. And I don't see it happening, but if they make it happen, good, maybe not good, because guess what? If you go rolling this relief off more millage rates, that's less that the unincorporated taxpayer gets to save. The more you roll off millage rate, maintenance operation, whatever, the less the unincorporated taxpayer is gonna save. You know, I got a mother that lives in the city, she's gonna get a bigger tax break than me, because I live in the county, but I'm okay with it.
But if they take it off of that, though, if they take it off of, if it was to go to joint projects, couldn't they then at least, like, I know the question was asked, well, it was poised, you couldn't go, you're increasing your utility service, because that's how the city would then make up that difference, is on the utilities. So if they are able to roll it over, would they not be able to apply that differences to possibly lowering the utility rates? I mean, I don't know that
So,
would be the case, but I'm saying if
do
they're
they
able to
tell
do
you
that,
when
just
they're raising the utility rate?
do I know?
Do they tell you when they're raising the utility rates?
No, I
Do
don't
they
know.
have free meetings so you can come talk about it?
They
I
have,
don't know the anyway. I don't know.
I would just
I see what you're saying.
I'm saying that would give them the option though, like just to look out for.
But if you do that, are you being fair to the unincorporated taxpayer?
Oh, so you got an offer there you can't refuse. I
Right.
mean, you hadn't got any choice.
And every percentage we pay above what the chairman is suggesting here, if you live in unincorporated Upson County, outside the city limits, you're getting less of a value for that. It's decreasing by every percentage. And if we were to go to 40%, I don't even know if it'd really be that enough savings there to even make it worth paperwork to do it.
I mean, you're not being fair to the unincorporated, you know,
Any idea how many citizens that is?
where's the most population?
74% of the population?
So, as a commissioner, I've served citizens of the city and the county,
65% of the population.
70, well, maybe 74% of the people are in the unincorporated Upson County.
If 26% is going to do away with the M and O for the city,
Yes.
if they got 40%, they can only take it off the M and O, they can't take it off anything else. They've got money there that they can't spend,
And they can't.
and they can't save.
Well, that's the discrepancy. That's the
Yeah.
only other side of that argument.
Yeah.
I get it, but that's the only, if it can be used anywhere else, and again, just like you said, it's unprecedented. If it's
So
possible.
what's supposed to happen? What
Let's
the
say
law
it's
says,
different. You
the
said
law
it's-
says that if you roll back to zero,
Yeah.
right, then that money goes back to provide broad tax relief.
Goes to
That
the
money
state.
goes back to the county
Yeah,
to be spread out
Yeah.
amongst everyone in the county. It would go back to exactly what we're saying to do to begin with.
Yeah, my frustration in this whole thing is, why can't we come together as governing authorities and do the right thing for the taxpayers? That's my frustration, the right and fair thing for the
So let's
taxpayers.
just consolidate everything. Huh?
No, I mean, to me, in my mind,
Go.
it's simple.
You wouldn't have this bickering and fighting and everything if we consolidated.
I mean, that's why you read my press release and it says more than fair, and it is, you know, to me, it's more than fair.
So when's the study gonna come out?
We turned it back to the city. We voted and sent it back to the city for study for the last year.
'Cause that's the only way you're gonna save much on taxes, is to consolidate, because there's so many counties in the state of Georgia.
I want to
I
say
agree,
something
for the first
that
5
James,
years, it will be a while.
I want to say something that James brought up a while ago about other counties doing this right here, doing the FLOST. It's happened in 3 counties in March. Those counties jumped on the ball and they got this revenue coming in to relieve property taxes for next year, okay? If we get it, we're not going to see tax relief until 2027, okay? And I guarantee you, there's going to be plenty of other counties in the state of Georgia that's going to add an extra penny FLOST sales tax. And when we go and spend money in there, we're helping them pay their property tax. That's what it comes down to. You know, do you want these out-of-town people shopping here, helping us pay the property tax, or do you want to continue putting the whole bill?
Is trade winds gonna help the property tax go down? Is building all these houses in the county and the city right now?
He's adding growth.
Yeah, he's adding
Yeah.
trouble.
Have any of them been sold since they started building?
Well, you know, the interest rates went back up and it's kind of slowed down for sure, you know, but hopefully things get turned
I
around.
think the majority of this whole call.
But even if they're not sold, they're paying taxes on
they're
the
paying
property.
taxes either way.
That's true, that's a good point.
They get you front with the back.
That's sitting in
All right.
there, it's paying taxes.
All right.
Let me just say that as a county property owner, you know, I'm fine with not getting as much savings as a city property owner.
Do you shop at Walmart or Home Depot?
Oh, yeah, on rare occasion Walmart.
So are you saying you're fine with
But I'm
having an
fine.
equal payment of
Equal
taxes?
payment distribution, you know, me only getting $181 and Jimmy Citizen owner getting $400.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
And your property
because
taxes
it's
are
for
the
the
same.
good of the county. And that's what the city government needs to come to realize. This is about the whole county, not about them, not about Upson County, every property owner in Upson County.
You know, that,
Not
that's good, let me tell my story, because that's a good point, okay? Really, this whole thing is about the elderly population that's sitting in their homes, that they've been in for 35 or 40 years. This is why this legislation came up, okay? It's about helping them. Most of the people in this room, especially Jerry Adams, we can comfortably afford to pay our taxes, right? But there's some that can't. I had a lady call today, and this is a true story. She called and said, Ms. Chastain, I need to ask you about what I need to do about taking my husband off my property because he died recently, a few weeks ago. And, I told her, went through everything that she had to do. Her voice was crackling. She didn't know what to do. It's like she just got handed the bag and said, hey, you got to go with it, okay? So I go and look her property up. She bought that home, her and her husband bought that home back in 1979 for $43,000. It's paid for. You know what it's worth today? $155,000. She's gonna be one of the ladies that's gonna save this $400, okay? Or $181, either way. But my point is, this FLOST tax relief, what it's about, she lost a husband. What happens when you lose a spouse to your income?
Social Security.
It cuts down, don't it? So they're already struggling to pay those taxes. When two incomes, guess what? She's gonna be struggling even more than that if she don't get help. That's what FLOST is about, okay? It's not about creating revenue for the city or the county, it's about helping the taxpayer.
I'm a widow, and I just moved back to Thomaston 6 years ago. I was born here, lived here till 1956, and we moved up to the Atlanta area. I lost my husband 8 years ago, so I decided to come back home. I bought a house. All I need is Social Security. That's where I live in. Brand new house. My house pays $1,000 every month. I barely can make my payments.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's about. I mean, and these people that have been here in Silvertown for all their life, their homes are paid for, they're struggling, We need to put aside the differences. Both sides need to put aside the differences, and we need to do the right thing, and we need to do it fairly. I'm not on the county side, I'm not on the city side. I'm a pragmatic, realistic person. And it's about being fair.
I agree.
Can I say something just that, and thank you for saying that, but I guess a bigger portion is for Dan wanting to get, the chairman wanting to get everybody in and kind of explain this to them. But the other portion of this is this, okay? It appears, hey, there's this big dispute between the city and the county, which I guess can be looked at that way, but the truth of the matter is this, there's not a dispute on our end. If you want us to give the farm away, let us know, we'll give the farm away. But do you want us to negotiate something that's not going to benefit the taxpayer the most? So understand, there's not this big argument of I don't like you, you don't like me type situation. That's not the case. It's that we're trying to do what we feel like is legal and right. And I'm not sure because they haven't explained what they're trying to do. So it's not a big argument. It's kind of like, we want this, and we think this is what's fair. But we're not, passing each other on the street, not waving or nothing. That's not the case. It's just that we're simply trying to follow the law and do the best for it, the most. And that's where we're at.
I'm not sure the FLOST are passed. I'm not even sure the FLOST are passed. Are y'all?
I think it'll pass because all the benefits that you're going to get as a property owner, whether you're
I just think the people are tired of paying taxes and y'all adding another penny in.
He's going though. He's right.
What?
You need to make sure you put it out there.
I need help.
So when people know what is what, because a lot of people feel that way. Oh, another one. We got this one, and this one. I'm not going to vote for it to tax myself. Why am I going to go vote for tax? So a lot of people feel that way. Now, it looks very fair. This looks good. That's the whole vote for another tax, but
this money's going back to you.
it does considerably.
This is the only tax that goes back to you.
And I agree with
You
that.
got it.
I agree with that tax, but like you said, is these other, East FLOST put a bad taste in my mouth on this. They had all these
Every 5 years, you'll have to
Put them
renegotiate.
sod on the football field and lights and all, it's not an essential for retirees. Somebody that's barely making it can't understand why we do it.
I can hear you. I hear you. I will tell you that when we're trying to bring in businesses and the like, what are they looking at? If they're bringing in businesses, they're bringing in families, they're looking at our schools, they're looking at the amenities that we have in our county. So we can't just let those go. I'm not justifying every penny they spend. I'm just saying we have to.
I guess we don't see all that. I mean, like the idea, they've been here forever, and I really can't count 2 or 3 projects they brought into.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, why are we funding them all this huge period?
Yeah, well, you know, that goes back to messaging, right? And if you don't let people know you've done something good,
That's right.
you didn't do it, right? So,
I know there's a question rose about the other optional taxes. Any, and I might not be saying this the right way, but any surpluses over the projects that those optional taxes were for were supposed to go to property taxes initially during those optional tax, like for the D-Splosh, C-Splosh, all of the optional taxes we've had so far. Once those projects were done, then the overages were supposed to go toward property tax relief. Was that correct?
that's not correct. That's not correct. So when you read the Georgia law, it says, for SPLOST is special purpose, right? So in order to put a SPLOST on the ballot, they have to tell you what they would use the money for, right? And generally, it's not specific, right? So the last one was maintenance and construction of government buildings, airport improvements, public safety. There was a number of things that is on it. Now, that's not all on the ballot, right? So, and we say, hey, we're getting $5 million a year. Well, guess what? Now we're getting 5.1, right? It's adding up. There's more money. And that money can go to another capital improvement, right? But it can't go to anywhere else. And we can't, that money has to be segregated in a special bank account. We can't intermingle it with property taxes. We can't use it for property
They
taxes.
can be carried over year to year.
It can be carried over, it is carried over until we expend it, right? And so the only one that will go back to property taxes is the FLOST. So, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. If you got any question you want to ask on the side, we can do that, but I'm gonna hit the off button on YouTube. I appreciate you being concerned about your community. I appreciate you showing up. I hope you learned something tonight. I'll post this to Facebook tomorrow so you can share it with your friends. They probably don't watch me standing around here. Everybody's sitting in the back like it's church. And so on YouTube, it's just me up here. There's a good crowd. Right, so thank you so much, and God bless.
Appreciate it, man.